Hello wonderful listeners and welcome back to Voice for Change. I'm your host Celeste Bow and we are very welcome to be joined by our guest today, Father Patrick Vanderhorst. Nice to meet you, Father Patrick.
Thank you, very nice to meet you, Celeste. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem at all. So Father Patrick, you are a priest in the Diocese of Westminster and you're also an art expert.
Correct, yes. I worked in the art world for 25 years and then I was ordained a priest less than a year ago. So, yeah.
Wow, a very big change.
Very big change indeed, yes. But a beautiful change.
Fantastic. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. As we like to start with our podcast, we have a quick fire round of questions for you.
Right, okay.
Yes. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So my first question for you is, who is a saint that inspires you and why?
Probably Saint Damien of Molokai, because I grew up in Belgium and aged 23 I moved to London. And Saint Damien of Molokai was born in Belgium as well. And then at the age of 33 he then moved to Hawaii and then to the island of Molokai, where he built roads and schools among the lepers, and I think he spent 16, 17 years there before he died, aged 49. And I remember when I grew up in Belgium, I went to a Benedictine school. In every classroom there was an image there of Saint Damien, so I feel he's a saint who's accompanied me from a very young age.
Oh, that's beautiful. And if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh.
It's a difficult question.
Well, I could say something very smart now, but no. But if I have to be honest, it probably would be pancakes. I sort of have a soft spot for pancakes, so I think pancakes and chocolate, being good Belgian, I think chocolate has to be in there. So probably a combination of both.
Yeah. So that would be like probably your favourite topping for your pancakes.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
What's your feelings on Belgian waffles?
Good, very good. Yes, okay. Yeah.
They're quite tasty. Has there been something that you've always wanted to learn and that you haven't had the chance to do yet?
I think probably learn the piano. I think it's one of my big frustrations in life, is not to be able to play a musical instrument. Something that I would love to be able to do, to have this whole kind of different language to express oneself in, rather than through writing or speaking, or just be able to play a musical instrument. So yeah, that's definitely a wish.
Okay. And do you have a favourite piece of art or a favourite artist? And could you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think probably my favourite artwork is Michelangelo's Pietà sculpture, which is at St. Peter's in Rome. Because I studied for the priesthood in Rome, and of course I knew the sculpture well before I went there to train. But when I was in Rome, and there was COVID as well, so there were, for nearly 2 years, there were barely any tourists around. I made a point of going back to St. Peter's over and over again, literally every fortnight, every 3 weeks, and see that sculpture. And I think with art, what happens is that when you see the same artwork over and over again, there's sort of a bond almost, like between two people, a bit of a friendship. So like it's like seeing an old friend. And so I used to go back to look at that sculpture, and I find it a very moving artwork, and each time I see it I'm sort of slightly lost for words, because people then ask, but what is it that you like about it? And I would find it very hard to put into words what it is, but when you stand in front of it, it's just sheer beauty. That's very moving.
So that's definitely one you'd recommend for people if they find themselves in Rome to have a look at?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So before you became a priest, which we will delve into, you also had your own valuation business, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what did that entail? Because I heard that you even went on to a well-known show called Dragon's Den.
I did.
So that has to be a whole other experience. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience in art, as well as being on Dragon's Den show?
So I moved to London in '95, and then I started working for Sotheby's, where I worked 15, 16 years till 2011. And then there was a changing landscape all around us is that the internet became really very prevalent, and the art world just started to move online. And so I had the idea to create a website to make art expertise very accessible for people, because I think people have heard of the names of Sotheby's, Christie's, Bonhams, auction houses, but then they have something at home and they don't know where to go to or who to check the value with of what they have at home. So that was the idea behind this, to make art valuations very accessible. And so the idea was simple: you pay £20 per item, and within 48 hours one of our team of experts writes a little report on the item. So, for example, on Mondays was always our busiest day, because people went to flea markets over the weekend and they bought a Chinese plate for £3 and then wanted to see if it was worth £3,000.
Yeah.
So we were always inundated on a Monday. And so I set up the business, took the idea to Dragon's Den, and Theo Pafitis and Deborah Meaden invested, which is wonderful. And we went on this sort of journey, very intense journey together for 6 years. And then we sold the business in preparation also for me starting to train for the priesthood. And by that time we had 500,000 customers that were using the website and still use the website. So which was great. And then I started seminary after that. Yeah.
What a journey. So do you think being in that environment of that Dragon's Den and, you know, trying to explain this idea that you have, do you feel that prepared you perhaps for your future?
Well, I think everything has prepared me for what I'm doing now, and what I'm doing now will prepare me for something else, and so that's sort of the joy in life, is always to learn, and I mean, I've been ordained 11 months ago, and I feel like I've just started a whole new life, and I start from scratch again, learning things. And yes, hopefully the old experience can come in sort of at some stage with all these things that I do, but yeah, I think it's important to just keep going and keep learning, and yeah.
And the dragons, were they scary? Were they did you feel like, I have a good feeling about this, I feel maybe Theo's going to be the one that's going to say yes, or were you not too sure?
No, I think I stood in front of them for 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Oh, that's a long time.
And so the edit, you see, is 10 minutes. And when I watched the program, I got friends together. I think there were 70 or 80 of us watching it in a pub.
Right.
And actually watching it was more scary than actually standing in front of them, because you have the music and it all sounds and looks very dramatic. But of course, standing in front of, we filmed in Pinewood Studios, where they sort of set up the whole stage, and yeah, it was slightly scary, because we had to be there at 7 a.m. in the morning, and there were 6 other candidates or entrepreneurs, whatever one wants to call them, being filmed that day, and I was the last one to go in. So by the time I went in, it was 11-12 hours later, and I remember was quite tired actually by that stage, just sort of waiting in anticipation. But then once the cameras start rolling and the lights went on, that was it. Just had to go for it.
That was your moment. It's like, it's now or never.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of, yes. Yeah. Because I felt I wanted to go on Dragon's Den mainly to get to the exposure for the business. And it's true, once the program aired, we had over 2 million hits on our website in the week that followed the program. So from that point of view, it worked. But it's a risk, because you can go on there, not get investment, lose face, so to speak. So yes.
I think it must have touched a lot of people who perhaps have things, you know, at home.
Yes,
they go to
exactly.
And stuff.
Yes.
And,
I only told my mum afterwards that I'd been on. So
you didn't tell her before?
I didn't tell her before.
She could have had a watch party with all her friends watching
She'd be
you.
mortified. So afterwards I told her, she was, oh dear. Yeah.
I love that. So then you, as you said, you went on then to combine your love of art with your knowledge with the gospel, so with the Christian Art Company.
Yeah.
So is this then what led you to start with the art reflections that are online available for people to sign up to?
Yeah, so after I sold the business, there was a period of about 9 months between having sold the business and starting seminary. So I had time, and then I thought, what can I do, sort of something useful with my time, and then I set up the website, sort of combining the old and the new, the old with the art world and selecting an artwork each day, and then my new life to be to tie it in with the gospel. And so for me it became not just a new venture, but for me it also became a way of prayer, which is still, it very much is at the moment when I write these reflections. Yes, I bring in an artwork, but at the same time, you can only write about these things by truly focusing on the gospel and writing a reflection that's meaningful for me and hopefully then meaningful for other people as well.
So how do you go about choosing the ones you're going to do for the day? Because it's every day, isn't it, that there's a reflection and gospel piece of art as well. How do you choose?
Well, I've seen a lot of artworks over the years, and while I've got a terrible memory to remember names or other things, I've got a good visual memory. Mm. So a painting I've seen 23 years ago, I can still more or less remember where it was, what house, what room it was hanging in. And so usually, I don't know, when I read the gospel, it just triggers an image, but I try to alternate between contemporary art, old master paintings, drawing, sculpture, a bit of ancient Roman art. So I think for the readers it's important to just see a very eclectic myriad of different things.
Yes, because the most recent reflection I saw was the sculpture, I think it was of Caesar.
Yes.
With the Bible passage about give to Caesar what is Caesar's, that kind of thing.
Yes,
so that's why I noticed the sculpture actually.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's sculpture, sometimes it's painting, sometimes it's drawings.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think our readers enjoy the mix, that it's very varied. And I have to say as well, because when we use our eyes and when we look at art, we can't also reduce Christian art to being solely art that uses Christian iconography, i.e. Depicting a crucifix or Our Lady with holding the child. I think it's very much as well looking at art in general through the lens of our Christian faith. And by that I mean, for example, a beautiful painting of a landscape can be as much a Christian experience than looking at a crucifixion scene. Because just the beauty that is conveyed of nature, the world that's been entrusted to us and that we have to look after, I think can be, okay, it's not a Christian image, but nevertheless we can see the Christian aspect in these artworks.
That's really interesting. I never really thought of that before actually, because sometimes you think, it has to be, the usual sort of images we expect to see, but a landscape which is showing, the nature, what God's created and everything is also Christian art.
Yes,
actually.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So art seems to be obviously very important to you and your faith. How can art help us to grow as Christians?
I think art taps into, and beauty, I would rather sort of call it, art and beauty taps into something very fundamental in us. As a church, we often talk about the three transcendentals, truth, goodness and beauty, and which are, well, they're called transcendentals because they transcend time and culture. So by that I mean cavemen always wanted to know the truth as well, and they wanted to lead a good life, or ancient Romans as well. They were always interested in seeking and finding the truth or embellishing things. And so irrespective of the times we live in or the cultures that we live in, that's part of our human nature, is to always seek truth, goodness and beauty. And I think as a church, before, when people were coming to church and our churches were bursting to the seams, so to speak, we could speak about truth, and this is what God says, and this is what is written in the Gospels, and then out of that then flows a good life. And if you follow those rules or those teachings, then that will lead to a good life. And then out of that, we create beauty as well to sort of make life a bit more enjoyable. But what we have to do now is, because people are not going to church anymore in the numbers that happened before, we can't talk. I can see it with my friends. I can't talk to my friends about Christian faith by starting to talk about, well, can I tell you, this is the truth, right? And they would run a mile. Or if I would say, can I talk to you about leading a good life? This is how one should lead a good... I think most people would just run away. However, beauty has this sort of non-intimidating quality by which you can just invite friends or people to be in the presence of beauty, and they will just sense or experience something that will sort of make them think that maybe, yes, there is a God. Or if I can just briefly mention an example. Before I entered seminary, I tried to attend evening prayer in Westminster Cathedral, there in the Chapel of Our Lady on the right. And still every night, I think at 5 o'clock, you can go there, and there's a little choir of 5-6 people who sing the Divine Office, the Vespers evening prayers in the evening. And I was meeting friends, say for a drink or for dinner. I often say, well, why don't you come at 5 o'clock there and then we'll go for drinks afterwards? And they said, well, I don't really go to church. I said, no, but you'll enjoy it. So they came, they're in this wonderful chapel, they listen to music, and something moves them. Like, I never started to talk about faith or about religion afterwards, but lo and behold, every time during the evening, at some point, they would say, does that happen every evening? And I thought that was really beautiful, that music and whatever. So I think we have to, as a church, start to use art again to talk about faith, because it's just such a wonderful means of communication with, especially in this day and age, we can approach a lot of people with it, I think.
So historically, do you think that was really one of the big reasons why particularly Christian art became so popular all those centuries ago? Because maybe it was an interesting and easier way to speak about the faith?
Yeah, I think just by bringing people into it, think of these Gothic cathedrals. Yeah. The minute people walk in, you go like, wow, yeah, this is absolutely amazing. You just feel you're in a sacred space. And then it's for the priest or whoever to say, well, yeah, we have, yes, in this church, this sacred space, but ultimately it's not about that, it's about, and then you just point upwards to God. But it's just a wonderful invitation into the mystery of faith, really.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I went to Girona Cathedral in Spain, and that's very Gothic and like, wow. I don't know if you've been, but that's just...
I've never been there, no. I can't say I have.
Yeah, but yeah, you've been. No, it's amazing, the artwork there, it's so big. I mean, they used to paint it seemed quite lifelike. Yes. A lot of the paintings and sculptures and it's amazing stuff. On a recent episode of the TV show Songs of Praise, you were there. We saw you on there with Aled Jones at the National Gallery, I believe it was. And you were going around with him looking at Christian art. There was a particular piece that you were talking about, which was the Supper at Emmaus.
Yes.
Could you tell us why you focused on that one, why you chose that one to speak about?
I know it's a painting that a lot of people love. There are other paintings in the National Gallery that actually because we filmed for a little while and they put the Caravaggio in the final edits. So I spoke about other paintings, but I think I wasn't surprised that they used the Caravaggio for the program, because it's just such a well-loved painting, and I think, like with all Caravaggio's works, it has something very cinematic. When you look at the canvas, because there's dramatic lighting, there's usually the backgrounds are dark, there's a sort of sense of mystery about it. The size of the canvases as well, sort of almost panoramic, sort of cinematic sort of sizes. So, and it's a painting that I very much like as well, because it packs a punch, and it was painted at the height of Caravaggio's career, and you can see that that he searched and he drew just before he painted that canvas. He put a lot of research into it, and the people who are depicted as well, they're not professional models. He literally paid people on the street. He got off the street, he paid them a £5 and said, "Can you just sit for me for 2-3 hours?" So all the faces are these very realistic early 17th century faces that you would have seen on the streets of Rome.
Well, that's interesting. I never knew that. I was just perhaps naively thinking he was just painting just random people, but actually these are real people he saw.
Yes,
and then they actually came and sat for him, and wow.
Yeah, because most artists before Caravaggio, they would have carefully chosen their models. Okay. So they would say, "I want St. John the Baptist to be this beautiful young man, but with a beard," and then they would go out and select people. But Caravaggio was so, because he always drank a lot. Yeah, so in the 2-3 days of the month that he was sober, he wanted just to quickly paint a painter. So it's got this very sort of quick immediacy to it, which you can actually see. Also, when you stand in front of the painting, you can see these very hasty brushstrokes that he made, because he literally wanted to paint the canvas, get paid for it, and then start drinking again for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we heard it here first. I didn't know that.
Well,
and we went about it. Well, he managed to produce amazing works that have lived on over these years and stuff like that. But sometimes art can be seen as a little inaccessible, particularly if you haven't had like a background perhaps in learning art history or understand really what is around you. And so, but there might be people who are very curious, people who go to church and they see beautiful pieces and they're like, "Oh, it's very nice, but I wonder if there is a deeper meaning to it, or is there a connection," and they want to motivate themselves maybe to find out a little bit more. Do you have any kind of words of wisdom or tips for people who would like to know a little bit more about what's about them, around them, and they could be the next Caravaggio, could be amongst us right now?
Yes.
Without the drinking part.
Yeah, I mean, most museums, thank goodness, are free. So I would say just go into any museum that you can and just look around and look at all the paintings and look at all the detail as well. I think because we live in such a fast-paced society, I think sometimes when we go to galleries we just want to see all the paintings and then walk out. But in a way, I think it's better to go 10 times to a museum, only spend an hour there and just focus on 1 or 2 pieces, but get to know them really well. Because it's like with anything else, you need to spend time with an artwork to ultimately understand it. Because first, yes, visually you might be attracted to a particular painting, but then it's only when you read upon it and spend time with it that actually you deepen your knowledge, and by deepening your knowledge you then deepen your appreciation for the artwork as well. So I think that's definitely one of the things to do.
So I feel there probably are quite a few, of our listeners, like maybe even younger people then, who perhaps will feel like this could even help them to develop their faith and understand things in a more visual way, rather than necessarily like writing, but this is more drawing and painting and sculpture. So it sounds like it's a good place to start. And I'd have to say Christian.art would be the place to start, I would say, because you get the daily reflections, isn't it? So
yeah, I think it's a lovely thing to read. I mean, I'm biased, of course, saying that, but for me, again, what I said at the beginning, for me, writing these reflections is a form of prayer, and I know people who read the reflections, they sometimes make them part of prayer groups, or they use just the image to pray with, and then they first try and see what they read into the picture, and only 5 minutes later they read what I've written about it.
Yeah.
So and I think that's probably a nice way of doing it, is to first spend time with the artwork yourself, and then sort of see.
And there's lots of amazing artists around the world who are creating beautiful Christian art pieces. For example, one of our favourites was the late Salvadorian artist Fernando L, who also he painted the beautiful Romero cross, which I actually have here as well.
Yeah, lovely. Yes.
It's so beautiful. There's a very massive Romero cross installed in St George's Cathedral in the Southwark Diocese.
Right.
How did you feel the first time you saw this?
It's very colourful, it's very cheerful, it's very joyous. It's typical of sort of what we would call folk art. And that's not saying it in any denigrating way, because sometimes people say, oh well, that's folk art or whatever. But I think something like this is actually a great celebration of this beautiful art form that sort of comes from within the people and rises up. And I think what he's done is to use that genre, and then within that genre sort of really embellish it to sort of the highest standard within that type of art. So I do like it a lot, and it's very recognizable as well. If you walk in a big room and there's even the tiniest of this color, you immediately recognize it, which I think is good. So as a means and a tool of communication, I'd say it's very effective.
And are there any sort of contemporary artists, perhaps from Latin America, Africa, that you've come across that we should know about if we don't know about them?
Not that many, to be perfectly honest.
Really?
But what we have done with Christian art, we recently had a competition where we just invited any contemporary Christian artist to send in their artwork, and we had 1,215 different artists sending in their works. And there were many of them from Africa, from South America, literally from all over the world, all saying the same thing, that they're in their room creating these Christian works of art, but no gallery wants to represent us. Really? So there's a lot of good quality out there, and great artists, but they just don't get the exposure, and people don't know about them. And so that's one of the things I'd love to do with the website, is for it to function as well as a platform where these artists, okay, we won't be selling any art, but for these artists to just be a platform for them to show their art to the world. And I think it's a good idea maybe to do it also by continent. To have people from South America, from Africa, Oceania, everywhere. So,
well, I think it's beautiful because it shows the diversity, the variety, of people's skills there and where they come from, and also you see in the depictions, because there's many types of paintings. I see a lot of them now where you have people that look like, say it's Our Lady, but it could be Our Lady of Guadalupe, it could be Our Lady represented in Ethiopia, or represented as in from Japan. So this has become quite popular. I've noticed a lot of that. So to have this opportunity must be wonderful, particularly today, whereas previously there wasn't much chance to have much of a variety of different depictions of.
I think it's I think you're 100% right, and I think when you look back at the whole history of the church, we've always been very good at encouraging that. To have these local interpretations of the Christian faith, and so for artists as well to depict it in their own way, not trying to emulate something that was done in the West. And I think as a church we've always embraced sort of just any type of art, literally from the Michelangelo sculpture that I spoke of at the very beginning, to the plastic glow-in-the-dark figure of Our Lady from Lourdes. If any of these things help you to pray and help you to bring you closer to God, then go for it.
So I love hearing what you're saying. It's just amazing. I've never really had an in-depth conversation about art before, so this is really an honour for me personally. But it's just amazing how then from there you moved on then to become a priest. As you said, it's 11 months and counting that you've been. So congratulations.
Thank you.
How did you go from there to become a priest? Could you tell us then the journey of how you made that decision?
It's something that I think was sort of in me from a very young age. I remember in the classroom they went round, what do you want to be later on? A fireman, a policeman, a pilot? When they came to me, I said, priest. So I can't think of a time that I haven't been thinking about it. But then, as I love art so much, I said I'll try and make a career in the art world, and I'll come to London, which is in Europe, the Centre for the Arts. And I thought if I can build a career in the art world, then that other thing will just go away. And it was one of the reasons also for leaving Sotheby's that I said, well, I've worked 16 years here now. Maybe if I set up my own business, then that will sort of really get rid of that thing. But it didn't. And I remember very well when I mean, talking very personally now, when I set up my own company, is that, again, with the Dragons, we said, okay, by the end of the year, we want 25,000 customers, and we got them. And then by the end of the year 2, we want 100,000 customers, and we got them. And then on those days that we then met and that we hit the targets that we set the year before, I felt a profound sadness. Really? Like a real, and I should have been proud and happy, and I wasn't really. And then I thought there's something happening here, which I need to look into. And so yes, then I started properly discerning for the priesthood in 2016, 17, and met a wonderful priest, my parish priest, who helped me to discern, and then and so I see, of course, people from the outside think that the choice I've made is sort of an extreme choice, and it's completely the opposite of what I did before. But for me personally, it's just a continuation of what I was doing. So whilst it is a big change, of course, for me it just feels like it's the next step. But yeah, I mean, I remember also having conversations with my mum, that when we spoke about it, she said, but why do you have to become a priest? And it's so extreme. Why don't you just do charity work, sell your business and then do charity work for the rest? I said, well, yeah, but it's not the same. It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same. And so, yeah, but yeah, all these people, I think, also when I told like my mum or friends or whatever, then at the end of the day, nobody was really surprised when I told them I would start training for the priesthood. And so that was also a confirmation that maybe, well, if other people maybe see it, maybe I should see it as well, you know. So. Yeah.
And how was your ordination? Where did that take place?
So the ordination was on the 24th of June 2023 in Westminster Cathedral. And I was ordained alongside 4 other brothers, so we were 5 of us. And it was very, very, very powerful and very, very moving, and yeah, it's a bit of a blur actually, because the day went so quick, and lovely celebrations with friends and family.
Yeah. Was your mum
ex-colleagues and from Belgium.
Yeah.
Lots of people came, and then all my old colleagues from the art world and from Sotheby's, and so it was just a beautiful, beautiful day. But yeah.
And your mum came?
Yes, my mum came.
Yeah.
My mum came. Yeah.
She didn't have a dry eye, I guess. She was like, my
No. No, my mum came, and it was. Yes, no, and we're very close. I mean, I talk to her every day, and so it was wonderful to have her there. Yeah.
And you are enjoying parish life. You're in North London, I believe, is that right?
Yes, I'm based in Enfield. I'm assistant priest there, and it's a big parish. We have 7 Sunday masses. It's a wonderful, thriving parish. We hear lots of confessions, visiting the sick, go to visit people at home, run the confirmation program, etc. So it's a very wide variety of things, and it's wonderful work, and again, I learn a lot. Things that come naturally, that things I like doing, then other things I really need to sort of delve into, because say marriage preparation, for example, and doing all the paperwork, it's quite something. But it's just beautiful work, and I'm so happy that I made the decision, and it's a wonderful life. Yeah.
And I think that there's, with vocations, like you said, from a little boy, you were even having it in your heart. It was there, and it was still there, despite, moving on, growing up. But then with vocations, many people do have these sort of feelings or thoughts, but sometimes it may take a little bit longer, but I think it does bring something if you've lived a life where you've been working, or you've been focused on education, and then you've gone into to be a priest or to be a religious. Do you feel that? Do you feel it kind of brings something more to the person and their service?
I don't think necessarily something more, but it brings something different, and I think it's important for the church to still have people who enter seminary when they're 20, and then when they're 30, and other people when they're 40 or 50. So that enriches the church, that some people, yes, come maybe with professional experience from a previous career, and then other people come who don't have that, but then they bring something else to the church. So it's important to have both, I think.
So what is next for you, Father? Do you have a focus now, a little bit more, building up the website even more, as in encouraging more people to look at another way to pray?
Yeah, I mean, what's next, what I'm working on at the moment, sort of my spare time in the evenings when I'm in my room, is I'm writing a book at the moment.
Oh, really?
Of the history of Christian art. Because a lot of the art books that have been written in the last 30, 40 years focus always on the artists, the society in which these things were created, but they on the whole leave religion sort of on the side, or the church who commissioned these things, or the personal faith of these artists, like Caravaggio as well. He was a man of deep faith, and that's why his paintings are so strong, I think. But in a lot of the art history books, that's not really brought to the fore, and I think that's what I'd like to do. So I literally start at the beginning of time, God creating the world, this master creator, then working all the way through the Old Testament, the Egyptian times, Babylonian times, the art that was created in those times, which is not Christian art, but nevertheless, say for example the Egyptians choosing to have gold for their liturgy and the most beautiful materials already for all their religious practices. That's something that then continues in our Christian tradition. So it's something that's deep inside us already from even before Christ came. So it's seeing the whole of history of art through the Christian lens, basically. So I'm nearly done writing it, and now I have to try and get it published.
Well, I'm sure you will. I mean, we look forward to seeing it, definitely. Maybe we have you back again. You can talk us through it. I suppose you have a great time with the parishioners, I suppose. Could you get a chance perhaps to share your interest about art with them? Does that happen?
I mean, not that much. But say for Christmas we've done a beautiful card, a prayer card, using a painting, and then on the back sort of explaining what the painting is, and then we did that for Easter as well. So I sometimes talk about art, but I don't, I keep the two quite separate. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure once they've all listened to this podcast, they'll be kind of like, oh, Patrick, can you tell us a little bit more about this one? I need to know, you know. Oh, that's awesome. So it's been amazing speaking with you today. Actually, it's been an honour. I feel like we've all learned a little bit more. And your journey has been amazing. I'm so happy that you've found your way, you know, to the true vocation that was there since a little boy. But then you're also helping us to learn more about prayer and reflective prayer with art as well. I think it's really interesting and really important. So just wanted to thank you for your time.
No, thank you, Celeste, for having me. It's a great pleasure and an honour to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's our pleasure too. And so that concludes another episode of Voices of Change with the remarkable Father Patrick van der Vorst. Father Patrick, again, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
We've had a really amazing conversation. It's been fabulous. We've had lots of invaluable insights as well today, so we're really pleased with that. To our listeners, as usual, stay tuned for some more thought-provoking conversations on Voices for Change. And don't forget to follow us on our podcast, like, share, tell your friends and family, and just join us in the CAFOD podcast family. Thank you. See you soon. Bye.